ready?
Got open man. DJ Moore. End zone. Touchdown. Touchdown Bears.
I am Jeff Joniak.
Blitz is on. Down he goes. Oscar.
What was it like playing for Coach Ditka?
I don't want to answer any questions like that.
Pressure coming. He's in big trouble. Down he goes. Montez Sweat.
And etc.
Now, Bears Etc. brought to you by Geico, with the voices of the Bears, Jeff Joniak and Tom Thayer.
With Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer, I'm Jeff Joniak, and this is episode 120 of the Bears Etc. podcast. It's brought to you by Geico. We recap a 30-12 loss to the Minnesota Vikings with an eye on the banged-up Detroit Lions and their arrival at Soldier Field on Sunday. We also have our weekly visit with Bears head coach Thomas Brown just around the corner. Tom, good day. What'd you see on tape?
Effort. And that's the thing that was the most encouraging thing to me is I thought you saw an aggressive front on the defense. Eric Washington did a nice job of bringing a bunch of different personnel groupings in. He kind of alternated their kind of expected lineup spots inside this defense that made the offensive line adjust and exposed Darnold to some big hits, got an interception by Tariq, and things that to me is the effort that's encouraging. It's not a team that has their car started and their U-Hauls packed. They're ready to go on the field and give the effort that's needed. And then when you look at the offensive side of the ball, we're still talking about a developing rookie quarterback that has a tremendous upside. Notification that the offensive line has to make another adjustment 24 hours before the start of the game. And I've been in those same shoes as Karan Amagaji, and it's not an easy adjustment. But with a couple of plays that if they would have gone the other way, the whole outcome of the game would have been different.
Concerns at all about the frustration that Caleb may be feeling? He doesn't show it necessarily, as you'll hear in an interview with the head coach, Thomas Brown. There are snapshots that people post. You can define it as frustration. Of course he's going to have some, but just playing the role of survivor at times with the pressure he's facing from defenses. And there was pressure. It wasn't a lot of dialed-up blitzes, but there was still pressure by the Vikings.
So when you go off the field, the first person they're going to put a camera on is the quarterback, especially on Monday Night Football. And whatever he does on the sideline, you're going to get a reaction from somebody in the media on that. But you could probably go to 6 or 8 plays during the course of the game, and you can watch an offensive lineman limping back to the huddle. You can watch a defensive lineman that has to get some assistance to get off the field, but 2 plays later, he's back on the field. But the quarterback is such a high-profile position, and Caleb is such a high-profile guy right now in the NFL. Every move he makes is going to be on the camera. And, yeah, if you show a little discomfort coming off the field after a season, someone's going to highlight it, and they're going to talk about it. But I think when you take every one of these guys, some of the hits that we see DJ and Keenan and Rome take, some of the other offensive linemen, defensive players, linebackers, DBs, everybody is exposed to those instances of pain, but they don't have a camera on them every move they make.
Tastes like Miller time. Go to MillerLite.com/BearsPod to find delivery options near you. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Competing, yes. Executing consistently, no. That's the piece that can be fixed, correct?
Of course. I think if Karan Amagaji is a left tackle moving forward, I think you'll be able to implement different types of protections under the difficult down and distance, the third and extremely long. In this week, he's going to have the opportunity to be a completely different reacting football player because he's going to be able to hear the count out of Caleb. And I think you'll see a more aggressive, more athletic left tackle than an offensive line that's an eighth of a second slower off the ball than the defensive line because of the contributing crowd noise. And to me, if Karan is going to play again, I'm excited to what he'll do in front of a home crowd rather than one of the most difficult atmospheres in the last 35 years to play at in Minnesota.
Yeah, that was a rare first experience as an NFL starter.
That's the thing about it is, so he had 24 hours notice that he was going to be the starting offensive lineman. And I'm just and comparable to what my first experience was in that same Minnesota stadium. The old one was when Kurt Becker got injured, and the offensive line coach, Dick Stanfield, comes up and says, "Hey, you're in the game." So you and I have talked about this a lot. When you're the depth of a position, there is not notification that you have to go in and you have to be ready in an instant's notice. Karan, I completely believe that he's ready to play mentally, physically, and everything that he's worked through when he showed up with an injury. But and I do think that he has a tremendous upside when he finally decides what position he's ultimately going to play.
Have a new or gently used coat laying around? Well, head to your local Jewel Osco until February 10th and donate one of your new or gently used coats to the 36th Annual Chicago Bears Coat Drive. Help keep Chicagoans warm this winter. Time now for our Status at Hallis with Bears interim head coach Thomas Brown. All right, thank you very much, Thomas, for joining us once again. The Status at Hallis with the head coach. Hey, what's this like for you right now?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I'm always an honest person. It's frustrating just because I feel good about the prep that we put in, the messaging in the building, and then not being able to get the desired result on the football field is always a frustrating part. But I am also still encouraged by the fight of our football team, the fact that we still continue to keep showing up. Our guys are positive in the building, and in the mix of everything that's going on, we still find ways to stay united.
How do you find ways to diffuse your frustration and not let players suffer the same kind of affliction, in something like this?
Yeah, I mean, I get it out of my system. I talk about it. And I think being able to have games kind of back-to-back help with that process. Got to be able to move on and get ready for the next opponent so you can't dwell on it. That's one of the beauties of the NFL when you're in season because it's a week-to-week process. So you try to figure out what you can make the corrections from the previous week, but also what you can build upon that was positive and pay it forward to the next game.
Kind of a strange question since I've never been in a team meeting with the entire team. So when you start a season in your position as passing game coordinator and move and you see all the elevations, so when you look out, do you see the same reaction on the faces of the players at this point in the season when their own frustration is bubbling up, and some guys are vocal about it, some aren't, so they kind of keep it inside? I mean, do you have to take almost a psychological approach to your job as well as you scan the room?
Yeah, well, I think our guys done a really good job since the moment I had an opportunity to step into this interim role a few weeks ago of always being engaged in meetings. Every time I start a meeting, I have everybody's eyes, nobody's looking around and wondering, and so I do appreciate that attention and focus. But I think it comes to me being able to be consistent with the message, what I deliver to those guys. But again, I'm always going to be an upfront and honest person. I do believe in clear, open, and honest communication as we continue to try to find ways to work through potential problems, but also prepare for the next opponent.
Do you still have the leadership council meetings?
Yes, we have a captain's meeting every week. So I meet with those guys before special teams meetings start every Wednesday. So I'll meet with them again tomorrow morning. And so in those meetings, I kind of give a recap of, not recap, but preview of the coming week when it comes to the schedules, what the plan is and thought process is. But also I'll preview those guys what the messaging for the group is going to be for this coming opponent. And also at that time, I always open the floor for those guys to give any feedback or communicate with me back and forth about if there is anything on their minds, which they've done a great job of for the most part. So it's kind of a collaborative effort when it comes to trying to find ways to help lead this football team.
This is a crazy situation because you'd like to keep this head coaching job here. Do you feel that difference a little bit now that you're in this position, or are you just a veteran that knows, hey, everybody's looking at me anyway, so I'm gonna keep being me?
Yeah, honestly, I don't. Just because I've had that same thought process most of my career. I think I learned early on my first couple of years in coaching that everything you do is evaluated by somebody. Obviously, now it's on a bigger stage because you're in a interim head coach role, and everybody listens to your press conferences, watches your body language, your message in front of the group. They watch how you organize, communicate with players. So, of course, there's more scrutiny when it comes with more responsibility, which is part of the course. But I sort of just think about it from the standpoint of what I can control and be locked in on that. And I don't control the future, never have, never will. Nor do I try to concern myself with controlling the future. I think anytime you have an opportunity to take over in any interim capacity, it's obviously normally not for a good reason. There's obviously some issues that need to be fixed. And so I understood kind of walking into it, it wouldn't be an easy task at all. I think it's also totally different when you have a chance to, get hired as a head coach, have the entire offseason, build a staff, pour into the players, build everything from the foundation, from the ground up. It's a little bit different than the role that I'm in right now, but have complete confidence in the prep that I've done, but also the guys around me. So I continue leaning into them, and we just work it one day at a time.
All right, let's look at some things football-wise. Something struck me when you met the media earlier in the day about a 4th and 1, a 3rd and 1. The importance of just getting that 1 yard in the NFL, what it does for the mindset of a football team from a physicality point of view to what the offensive line is feeling when you entrust them to get that 1 yard, and the opposite of when it doesn't happen, because those can be as big a play as any in the NFL, as much as a big play and explosive play.
Yeah, definitely. I think football is a game of inches. Sometimes life is the game of inches when it comes to how close things are to having success and working out. But still, again, have no regrets about the thought process behind it. Talk to those guys kind of going into the game about calling a more aggressive game and taking some so-called chances. Still stand by the thought process and belief that we should be able to get a yard in the NFL when it comes to how we execute. And I can continue to try to find ways to be creative with the play call and put us in the best spot so we can execute. But definitely we had 2 opportunities for 4th and 1s. We got stopped on both of those. And that's something we got to do a better job of correcting and fixing. But also when you talk about being a physical football team, you can't really talk about being physical if you don't run the football and also aren't going to be committed to going forward and when you have just a yard a game.
Because Troy Aikman did the game, I've always remembered his rookie season, and he brought it up in the broadcast, I believe, just reading about it. Started 11 games as a rookie, lost them all. 2 years later, he was a Pro Bowler, six in a row. So there's some wisdom there and some explanation of how hard this is. Peyton Manning led the NFL in interceptions his rookie year. So it is a tool, an instrument to say, hey, listen, man, there's nothing easy about this. And I'm certain that Caleb understands that anyway, but is it a good reminder, though?
It definitely is a good reminder. I think, most guys have an opportunity when they come in, have high expectations for themselves, especially when you're drafted number 1 overall and you're a starting quarterback, to have the visions of being the champion, of leading the football team, of making miraculous plays and going on winning streaks, which is something that he's definitely capable of and will be doing for a long time, in my opinion. But also, it's still a rookie in the NFL. It's tough. It's a hard deal. And to me, I think it's even harder in today's world because the expectations placed on rookie quarterbacks by the outside world is like completely unrealistic. And it's part of the problem, in my opinion. It won't stop. It's going to continue to be highly scrutinized, highly hyped up. But I think the understanding of what it takes to play the position, what all goes into it, the development that it takes, and it actually takes time to grow and be the best version of yourself. And you have an opportunity to live it out in front of the entire world week in and week out. So I think it takes a lot of, mental capacity to be able to stay strong, to ignore the outside noise, to focus on what's the most important thing, and continue to try to find ways to, be hard on yourself, but also give yourself some grace so you have time and room to grow.
And because of the way the world is now with social media, they can take a clip off a TV broadcast and it's posted immediately. And so the hit on Caleb by Jahai Ward, that was a pretty vicious hit. Goes to the sidelines, and he looked like he was in pain, whatever the case may be. But a lot of conclusions are drawn from just that 3-second shot of what, hey, you're going to have to shake that off. But it kind of paints a different picture than the reality.
Yeah, I mean, perception is reality even when it's not. And that's, the difficult thing sometimes when it comes to life in general. But you mentioned, obviously, with it being a social media generation, I think a lot of times misery loves company. So I think when people have issues in their own lives, it makes it easy to go to the internet and voice their opinions about other people's lives that they don't live and can't live. And so that's why I just ignore it altogether. As I mentioned several times, whether it's positive or negative, those things don't matter. They don't really affect you unless you allow them to affect you. So I think being able to always understand the perspective and being where your feet are and always trying to find ways to seek out growth is always the most important thing.
You mentioned Caleb giving himself some grace. Would the same apply this afternoon for Karan Amagaji?
I mean, 1,000%. I think, again, people just don't understand the mental gymnastics that go into finding out 24 hours before that you're about to go start your first NFL game. On top of that, on the road. On top of that, versus a top opponent that is, and clearly in the playoff picture in a loud environment. My hat goes off to him because there was never any flinch or doubt or hesitation on his part. Obviously, he'll continue to go. He went through some growing pains as well, which is, again, is part of being a rookie. I don't care what position you play. But whether you're playing quarterback or playing left tackle, it's not going to be easy. It wasn't meant to be easy. If it was easy, we just pick anybody to go do it. And so there's only a select few of guys that can be able to do it from a physical standpoint, but also mentally.
I got to give a tip of the cap to Dominique Robinson because you speak about playing violent football. He was violent on that punt block.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was a bang, violent play, and a guy who has not had many opportunities but has kept a pretty positive mindset about himself.
That's a great example of being at your best when your best is required. As you mentioned, not having a ton of opportunities, but when his number got called, he made the play in the game that actually led to us being able to get a score on that same drive, which is also why it's baffling to me when people talk about the football team quitting, right? You don't block punts in the fourth quarter and score a touchdown in the fourth quarter. Your football team quits. Are we not getting a result we desire? Of course not. Is that frustrating? Absolutely. But to label somebody as a quitter to me is a completely different deal, which is egregious, which is why I challenge guys on, if you believe that, pull the tape up and show me an example of that, of who you say is quitting and when we're quitting. But definitely kudos to him to being able to rise to the moment, make a critical play in the game, and give us some life.
We mentioned this earlier. Now the Lions, and that'll be the tape Dan Campbell's watching. So I'm sure he's going to remind these guys, hey, this Bears team's not going to fold up the tent on you, and they're wounded too.
They definitely are. I mean, they're still a very competitive football team. They still battled last week, even though they ended up losing. But he's a gutsy head coach when it comes to taking chances and making some, what people will call at times critical calls throughout the game. But it's going to be a tough opponent for us. Obviously, we battled against them the first time at their place, put ourselves in a deficit, had a chance to go battle back to the end of it, had 20 points in the second half, and we're driving, had several opportunities to close the game out, and then we didn't capitalize on it. But looking forward to the opportunity to come back at home and go to battle.
All right. Appreciate your time as always. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really enjoy speaking to him. He's very polished as a speaker, but he also just tells you what he feels. There's nothing more than that. He's very direct, and as he's indicated many times, but I like the way he is handling this. I mean, this is his shot too. You got to remember that. It's not just about the Bears. It's also his shot too, and so he's trying to compartmentalize all of that and be the leader of this football team for the remaining games.
Well, you can tell about Thomas Brown. He's a super intelligent guy because these are not pre-prepared answers or questions given to him beforehand. He is speaking from the heart and off the top of his head throughout his other experiences in his coaching life, whether it's an example from another head coach that he played for or the development of him as a position coach throughout his career. And I like the seriousness of his voice and the tone that he's not going to let these players just cash it in, that he's expecting effort and he wants to see better effort out of them. And I do think that in Minnesota, we saw a better effort out of the football team than San Francisco. I just think that these guys went into Minnesota and they knew what happened in San Francisco, and they kind of respect what the coach is doing for them, and they came out and they had a better example of a more physical, energized brand of football.
He mentioned about the aggressive decisions, and he categorized them with us in the post-game show on Monday night, but also afterwards. But I get what he's saying. Yeah, there's got to be a spark of some sort to light a fire in this first quarter. 3 straight games, no points in the first half. That's rare. 5 times this season. So there's got to be something that ignites it. And it all it takes in many cases is just that yard. Or in the case, like the touchdown that was wiped out. The details matter.
I don't disagree with his decision to go for it on 4th down. I do think that as a head coach, as a staff, you probably go back and you reevaluate. All right, what are we seeing on screen from what the defense is offering us? Do we have a better option than the plays we called? And that's the exploratory that you go through every single week, every single tape that you study against your opponent. So listen, man, I'm all for Thomas Brown making those decisions to be aggressive and go for it, because you get those 2 4th and 1s. You get Kramer to go in there and report to the official. You and I are sitting here right now talking about a completely different outcome. So listen, don't stop being aggressive, because I think that's one thing that endears you to a football team in the final few weeks of the season.
Time now for our Geico Gives You More Football Stat of the Week. Caleb Williams. This is from Doug Coletti, our Director of Research and Statistics. He did this yesterday. The only quarterback in NFL history with 400 or more passing attempts, a sack percentage greater than 11%, but only 5 interceptions. Insane math when you get right down to it, Tommy, and we've seen a lot of insane math in our career together. But when you think about it, and the 8 straight games without an interception, which a rookie quarterback has not done since at least 1950.
It's an amazing stat, because Doug is the king of stats. He's the king of pre-predicted numbers, what can happen to a football team, offense, defense, or special teams. And Caleb has ignored the number. Man, he keeps just going and throwing the ball and making sure that he's buying time behind the line of scrimmage, delivering the ball accurately, making some big plays, but again, being super protective of the football. And I do think when you're a Bears fan, like I have been my whole life, I'm super encouraged to see where this kid's going. And I'm, like Doug is emphasizing the point that he's having some remarkable success in some difficult circumstances.
Hey, Bears fans, Steinhoffel's a proud partner of the Chicago Bears. This Bears season, Steinhoffel's is partnering with Special Spaces Illinois to create dream bedrooms for children battling cancer. For every false start caused by the Bears defense during a home game, Steinhoffel's donates $1,000 to Special Spaces Illinois. Shop in store and online at steinhoffels.com. I got to talk about Dominique Robinson. I've always appreciated Dominique. He never, you talk about Caleb at the podium we mentioned last week. There's never any, woe is me look to him. There's always a positive outlook. He's not, he's hurting inside. I'm sure the losses are mounting. He's never experienced such loss in his career at the high school or college level, and nor do many of these players ever experience something like this. But Dominique has not been able to get on the field much. And the opportunities are rare, but boy, that as I mentioned with Thomas, that was a violent play.
Yeah, it was.
I couldn't stop watching it.
One thing about Dominique Robinson, the reason I pull so hard for him is because there's evidence in his desire. And a lot of that started when he showed back up this year after spending the offseason away, and he looked like a completely different sculpted body. And that's the effort that I want out of all these players, is what Dominique Robinson did to himself to be more prepared physically for the game of football. And no matter what they're asking him to do, to run 60 yards and make a block, make a play, make a tackle, he's willing to do it. If he's lined up on the line of scrimmage and they're asking him to go after the punter, and then he wins and he gets into the punter's body and blocks that punt. I love to see him as an example of a self-made success, and I pull for him, and I want his best yet to come.
Guy I pull for, too, all the time is DeMarcus Walker.
Oh,
yeah, you too.
Me.
I do.
Yeah.
I do, Tom.
DeMarcus.
He's got these bursts of dominance, and he had it in week 1 against Tennessee, and he did it again yesterday with 4 pressures, 4 hits on the quarterback, and he's now got 25, career high in pressures in a single season. He's still got 3 games to go. Are we talking about an underrated impact?
Well, I think more people don't appreciate his versatility, because when you're talking about a guy that can play inside, outside, it's 2 different characteristics. If you're playing on the outside, you have to have get-off speed, and you have to have the hand-fighting ability to disengage from an offensive tackle that the arm length. That's what they always have to fight through, and he has the ability to do that. But then you also have to have the strength and the stoutness to be able to play on the inside, to being able to go physical against physical, strength against some of the bigger offensive guards in the league. And he has that ability. So I like DeMarcus Walker because he's always chattering at practice, and I like that kind of angst that he creates, and it's kind of an angst that it creates encouragement. And that's what I like about him. But, what he's able to do on the field, I think it's super helpful to the defense. If you do have injuries, no matter inside or outside, he can fill the role effectively at each of those positions. And then I like his football attitude. And I think it's super important to have those guys on the team.
Good news, Chicago. United Airlines is getting brand new planes with all the bells and whistles like Bluetooth connectivity, screens at every seat, and room for everyone's roller bag. United, proud to fly the Chicago Bears, and you too. Let's start dipping in to what the week ahead lies. A short week. They're going to adjust the practice schedule accordingly and get ready for a Lions team that is kind of in an interesting position. They're getting reevaluated by the analysts and experts out there on are they really going to maintain their Super Bowl contending status given the degradation of a defense in particular that has lost so many key players, and maybe, arguably, outside of Aiden Hutchinson, one of the most valuable players in that team is David Montgomery, the mindset he brings and the toughness that this team is labeled with, that grit they talk about, out for the year. Aleem McNeil tore his ACL, very good defensive tackle, out for the year. Carlton Davis has a chance to return. He's out on injury reserve, maybe able to return late. And then Khalil Dorsey, an underrated special teams player and corner. So are they positioned to weather that storm? Not that we really care because we're Bears fans, but going into this battle here in Chicago on Sunday.
Well, you talk about a couple key players that are going to miss the remainder of the time, Montgomery and McNeil, just two guys. Now, the guys that are standing in the line behind them, are they going to be able to withstand the increased role at this stage of the season because there's going to be more required of them? Jamar Gibbs, is he going to be able to take 15 carries to 30 carries? Is the defensive tackle that's playing in a backup role, part of a rotation as a defensive lineman, is he going to be able to go from 15 reps to 35 reps? And that's the uncertainty and the unknown when you have some of these replacements come in late in the season and their role is increased, but they're also at the downside of the physical approach that the season, the physical toll that takes on all these guys. And that's yet to be seen. I was listening to an attitude with Dan Campbell, and he's the guy that gets up the mic and says there are no excuses, and we're not thinking anything less goal-oriented than we were with every one of those guys, and that's the right message to send and get into your locker room. But, you're taking a warm weather team, I almost said, but you're taking a team that plays a majority of his games indoors or in the warm weather. Now you're going to bring them outdoors on a 30-degree day on natural grass. So there's a lot of evaluation that's going to go into this Detroit Lions team. And I'm excited to see the Bears take Soldier Field and see what they do to Detroit.
Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Illinois, right here at home, driving access toward healthier communities through it all. The Buffalo Bills put up 562 yards of total offense. Everybody is now giving the MVP to Josh Allen for that performance and what he's done all season long. 8.2 yards per play, and they were forced to punt only one time. So that's what happens when you lose so many players on defense and so many game changers on that side of the ball. But we'll bring it to you. A noon start from Soldier Field on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network. Tom, I hope you'll be there early, as always.
You know what? I'm already jacked up for this game, and I'm excited to talk about it later in the week with you because, the Bears have some work ahead of them. Detroit has some uncertainty ahead of them, but the Bears need to get back home, man. They need to get back home and do something exciting in front of their fans, get the fans on their side immediately, and get this thing jacked up and going.
Yep. We're brought to you by PNC, official bank of the Bears. We'll talk to you again on Thursday. We'll drop another podcast, deeper preview into the Lions, and a special guest as always. Special thanks to Bears head coach Thomas Brown. For Tom Thayer, I'm Jeff Joniak. Thanks for listening, everybody. Please subscribe now on the Chicago Bears official app, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Bear down, everybody.